Hi, and welcome to October's edition of BD TV. Really pleased today to have Simon Agar join us from Slaughter and May. I'll introduce Simon in a moment. Usual format. It's quick and cheerful, 20 minutes, and we'll have Q&A and a poll in the second half of that 20 minutes. So thank you very much, Simon, for coming along today. Now, you have a really interesting role at Slaughter and May, and obviously it's an iconic firm. Please tell us a little bit more about what you do there.
Sure, and thanks for having me, Peter, and hello, everybody watching. So yes, I'm in the business development team here at Slaughter and May, but with a really specific focus on international. I know most people are probably aware of the Slaughter and May model, but it's probably worth just explaining it a little bit now. So we're a Magic Circle firm, but unique within the Magic Circle, and indeed most large city firms, in that we do all of our work or almost all of our work is very much international in nature. The clients that we have are all international, but we don't operate a 30 offices around the world model that, say, Freshfields or Linklaters do. And so kind of key to our international delivery is having a really strong relationship firm network that we invest a ton of time in developing and getting information about. So our team actually that's purely focused on this is a team of 10, which is comfortably I would say the biggest that just does this role within a legal law firm anyway. And it's really it's just to ensure that Slaughter and May can continue to be a really elite international law firm. So my role, specifically what that looks like on a day-to-day basis, there's kind of 4 buckets. So firstly, with the business development side of things, it's just developing our international client base, winning new work, and kind of helping our partners and clients around the world. A second bucket is to be able to deliver that is managing our overseas relationship network. That's everything from meeting knowing the firms, monitoring the legal markets, and making referral suggestions, and also managing the internal referrals we get from our overseas law firms. The third bucket is just monitoring our overseas developments, what's happening around the world that could be of relevance to our existing clients, and making sure we're feeding that back into the right clients teams, and that our clients are benefiting from our awareness of international trends, developments, and issues that they need to be. And that's mostly what I'm going to be speaking to you guys today about, and how we do that. And then finally, there's obviously a large internal coordination piece. We see ourselves as the COO of the country desks. So we make sure the country teams are doing what they should be doing. There's a lot of internal communications, a lot of kind of ensuring that there's the right flow of information, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. That's really clear. And as you say, let's if we may dip into that third bucket first of all, when you talk about overseas developments and how that's going to affect your clients and how it's going to affect the relationship firms. One thing that's hard to ignore at the moment, even if you wanted to, is 3rd of November, U.S. elections. I'm not going to ask for your predictions or your views on any of it, but from a BD perspective, how do you add some value to your clients and to your network of relationships around that type of massive event?
Yeah, so it's exactly right. It's a global event, so that's, I think, point one to recognize is that this is something that you just can't ignore. It's weirdly it's a bit softer on the BD side, as in there is going to be no direct legal work, very direct legal work as a result of the US election. So, for example, as a firm, we're not going to be involved if there's litigation around the results or anything like that. But it's clearly a very, very strong talking point with our clients, and that's both just because it's interesting, right? Like you say, it is an absolute kind of, it's the first 5 minutes of most Zoom calls I'm on now involving international, even if that international isn't with the US, if it's with Japan or Australia or whatever, we're talking about the US elections. And it's also, it does have some commercial impact. So how's this going to impact M&A, how's this going to impact the UK-US relationship, the Brexit negotiations. All of these are kind of forward-looking client conversation points that we need to be on top of. And in fact, we need to, the international team need to make sure our lawyers have the confidence to be able to go ahead and have those conversations about how, not just what the outcome of the election might be, but how that might impact them as a company. But for an example, we did an internal talk last week, I think, where we had one of our close US contacts come in. He's quite politically connected, and he gave a 1-hour talk to anybody in the firm who wanted to join. One of the benefits of the pandemic is our internal talks are now very well attended, and this one was actually one of the most attended, best attended of all time of our internal talks. As a firm, we do a lot. It's quite a geeky firm like that. And that person just kind of laid out what might happen with the election, what the political risk is, what kind of key milestones are going to be happening between now and the election and afterwards. Quite an interesting point about this election is one of the most kind of significant political risks to our clients is not whether it's going to be a Biden presidency or a Trump presidency and what that means. It's whether there's going to be a disputed presidency. Yep. And is there going to be 6 months of uncertainty in US politics? Is that going to mean that the capital markets and the M&A markets grind to a halt? Can clients do anything if the government is in absolute chaos? So just being aware of the likelihood of that to happen, which, as a side point, is depressingly higher than it should be, that could well be the case. So there's a lot that we can do to make sure that our internal audience, i.e. our lawyers, are aware of what the impacts might be, and hopefully they can then just go and they're having client conversations every day. They're dropping in the points that they're now educated on. There's clearly obviously an internal strategic play to this as well. So we keep our kind of executive level team updated on what we're seeing with respect to political risk, whether it be in the US or anywhere, or just global trends. What as a firm we might have to be doing to mitigate against that, whether we should be ramping up our BD or bringing it down because of the pause in activity, etc.
So it's so you're really clear about it. It's keeping your lawyers informed and talking to clients, and if we may step away from the US for a moment, the Japan trade deal, for example, what does that look like on a practical, tactical level in terms of how I would benefit as a client or a respected contact of the firm? What do you do? Is it about webinars? Is it about phone calls? Is it about thought leadership?
Well, again, just take a step back and how we kind of make sure that we're on top of that. We have calls with, for example, our Japanese relationship firms. We get a sense as to how much of a significant talking point this is in Japan, and just a quick answer to that, not nearly as important as the future UK-EU relationship to Japanese companies. That is much more important. The UK-Japan trade deal, if it does happen, has been announced, but there's further detail needed. That's great, but it's basically replicating the EU trade deal they've already got. What is important for the Japanese clients is the future of the UK-EU relationship. So we take away from that call, right, what we need to be talking to our Japanese clients isn't necessarily about the Japan-UK trade deal. It's about what's going to happen with Brexit, what our predictions are there. And in fact, most partners are kind of a little bit hesitant to kind of predict that and kind of go on a call with a client and say, okay, this is what we think is going to happen. But it's our job, I think, to push them along and say, listen, clients aren't going to expect you to be 100% accurate and have all the answers to Brexit. What they will appreciate is you just saying, listen, this is my best estimate. This is our best estimate as a firm based on everything we've seen. We'll obviously keep you updated as things progress, but this is where we think the situation currently looks like. There is other things you can do. So, I mean, just a simple what we think the Japan-UK trade deal kind of what are the instant takeaways. Very little legal within that right now, but it's just a client door opener, and really kind of a signal that we are significantly invested in Japan, both to our Japanese clients, but also to our domestic clients who are either thinking about investing in Japan, already in Japan, and just regularly reminded that Slaughter May is a firm that is absolutely positioned to help them there.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. That's actually a really good point where I could introduce this month's poll, if you don't mind, because one of the things we want to ask everyone who's live on the call today is, as we plan for 2021, how do you think the demand for international advisory work will change? Now I'm going to launch that, and then as people have a chance to respond to it, Simon, I'll come back to you in a moment, if I may, just to get your view on what you think. So if any of you can see that poll now on your screen, sorry if you're watching a recording of this on YouTube, I'll explain the outcome in a moment. But it's just to say, yes, is it going to remain broadly constant, but the balance of work changing across different jurisdictions? Will there be a similar balance around the globe? Do we anticipate a significant rise in demand for international advisory, significant fall, or actually is it far too complex to call? I'll just give a moment more for that to complete, and then Simon, I'd love to get your view. You're probably you're certainly in a more informed position than I am to comment on this, and I'm sure than a lot of people in BD. So just 1 moment. Yeah, we've now got almost 70% of people have voted. So I'll just end the poll and then reflect the results back to you. So this is this is the first. I hope this isn't a sign for the 3rd of November, but we actually have a complete tie here, which is the first time it's happened. So saying one of the three leading options was anticipating a significant rise. Nobody anticipating a significant fall. And just over 50% in total saying it will remain broadly constant. Are you happy to comment on that, Simon?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the equal split is very indicative of the difficulty it is to predict the legal market. It's very countercyclical. There's a lot of trends ongoing. For example, the demand for international legal advisory work in 2021 could be influenced by the impact of Brexit, London as a financial hub in Europe, the impact of the Trump-Biden presidency outcome, whether there's a significant, for example, Chinese trade war that just freezes the entire international business world if Trump somehow gets re-elected. There's obviously the outcome of the pandemic. Are we still going to be in a pandemic, or are we not? And then finally, as I said at the start, it's a really difficult world to predict the international legal advisory world. I don't think we're going to see a significant change myself. I think international law firms have been growing and getting more international in their office footprint. I think the Slaughter May model is actually perfectly set up because we're not defined by where we have offices on the ground. We have partners who are kind of all over the world, whether it be physical or virtual, and so it's less of an issue for us where the growth is or which markets emerge out of the pandemic quicker than others, because we're genuinely positioned all over the world as an international firm. So it's a great flexible model in that respect. So yeah, that's my prediction.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Simon. Thanks for commenting on that. I'd now like to pose a couple of questions to you, if I may, and to remind everyone who's with us live today, if you do want to pose a question, please simply click on the icon at the foot of your screen, the Q&A icon, and if it's clean and legal, I'll happily pass that on to Simon for his comment. But one thing that's already come in, and this is something I can absolutely relate to, having worked within professional firms, is we've got COVID, we've got Brexit, we've got the possibility of a disputed result, and certainly we've got the, we're in that immediate period before knowing what the outcome will be in the US. Do you find that affects how active and confident partners are in their own relationship activity, their BD activity, when there is that uncertainty?
It's a great question, actually, and I think there's what partners should be and what they actually are, and obviously there's partners fully on the different parts of the spectrum just naturally anyway. I mean, the should be is absolutely should be out there using this global disruption as a door opener to clients, even if it's just to get an introduction or just to develop the relationship, if not win direct work as a result of the pandemic. But what actually you regularly see, and I'm going to be honest, and this is the same here at Slaughter May, is some partners just kind of the uncertainty doesn't suit them well to go in and talk to clients, and so again that's where our role is, just to kind of really encourage them and push them out there to go and discuss stuff. And it could also be, let's be frank, that they're really busy, and this is just an excuse to say, well, there's uncertainty, so maybe we shouldn't do this or that because
yes.
We don't know what the outcome is. Let's wait and see what happens. And again, I mean, this is the role of BD, right? Is to consistently kind of keep things going, keep banging the drum, keep projects alive and running. So again, that's not necessarily a more fun part, but getting partners to do stuff that they don't necessarily want to do is an important part of our role.
Yeah, and reassuring in a way, I must say, from a selfish perspective, to hear you say that, even at Slaughter and May, that is an issue where people want the certainty to be confident, and among some there's a slight unease about engaging in conversations with that uncertainty. I think will always be this way in some ways. On a more hopefully a simpler, more tactical level, I think something that would be interesting for a number of the people who are watching today is you've got these relationships around the globe where there's not a direct command and control or any way of in directly incentivizing those other relationship firms. How do you keep really good collaborative and relationships between all the different relationship firms, BD teams?
Yeah, I mean that's fundamental part of our role and fundamental part to our success. It's both kind of difficult but also really enjoying. It's one of the things I personally really love about the job is it's working with people, and what's really important is how you started that. We are very adamantly not incentivized based, not exclusive. We work with the right firms on a job by job basis, and actually that's why the firm has invested so much in having this international mindset and international team, is that we dedicate enough time and effort to the market to know that it's simple stuff like staying in touch. And actually the pandemic's really helped that, because typically it's meeting them for relationship catch-ups when they're in London, or we're in Mumbai or Sydney or Tokyo or New York. And actually this has just allowed us to increase the frequency, because it's got rid of the phobia of Zoom calls. And I would say, not that we use Zoom, we use Teams, but that there was, before this pandemic, even though there were steps to try and increase the virtual interaction, we were still very much kind of, there's nothing like being in a room with a law firm to really kind of make sure we develop those relationships. There's a very kind of equal professionalism with the relationships too. It's very and that's actually one of the things that we really love, is that we treat our relationship firms very much as an equal partner, rather than we're a firm with 40 offices, you need to do what we say, or else you're not going to get our work. We're not that model. We're very much kind of how can we better work together, etc.
Yes.
And then just very simply on a BD front, we've definitely increased interaction with our relationship firms on a BD front, more so just as a kind of a support network, because people genuinely are not sure what they should be doing, what technology tools to be using, whether they should be kind of thinking about virtual events more into 2021 or physical events. And so we've got a really good kind of increase in connectivity, a really nice friendly group of business development managers with independent law firms around the world, and it's a really nice gathering.
Yeah, great. Well, actually, a couple of further questions that have come in that build upon that answer, if we may. Now, excuse my pronunciation. I believe it's Swazi Peruz has said, and I appreciate you may not be in a position to share this, but is there anything sophisticated platform or software you're able to use to gather press and data and news that's relevant to clients globally and disseminate that? Is there anything you're able to share with us?
Yeah, so it's a good question, actually. It's the timing. So thanks for Zeke. I think it's Zeke. The timing's really pertinent because we are actually undergoing an internal review of how we report on investment, gather data, use data. I mean, as a firm, we use many of the tools that most people do. I would say a straight answer to the question is there's no one single kind of killer app or platform that you should use. We have a kind of a data management system for our overseas relationship network, both in terms of kind of content base, but also kind of referral flows. But that's completely bespoke, built in house, and so not really anything I can recommend as a tool for others. But all I would say is data is super important to managing our overseas relationships. It's both important on a macro level to be able to report on the flows of work and kind of where we should be focusing our strategy, but also just useful on a day-to-day referral giving and receiving basis, just to know that we're receiving the right amount of, sending the work in the right places for to the right firms for that specific matter.
Yes. Now, I'm conscious of time, Simon. So if I may just return to a point we talked about earlier, which is this, we don't have the same chance to get together, clearly. And I saw in the legal press today, Kirkland, for instance, where had announced, or it was clear that they'd saved $2.5 million by not having an in-person partner conference in California. And related to that, we've just got a question in from Quentin Veal. Hi, Quentin, which is saying, what can we be doing if this kind of thing isn't happening anymore? What can we do to really keep those relationships alive and sustain them on a long-term basis if we're not getting together in that way? Anything you find that's working really well, or is it just a case of trying to keep it ticking till we're back out there?
I think increased frequency of those relationship catch-ups. I think adding, even though we very purposely frame them as being less formal, more about just kind of maintaining a communication information flow between our firms. I find in this virtual world, adding structure, even if it's behind the scenes, really helps. And I would say, actually, a straightforward answer to it is there is no ultimate substitute to developing relationships in person. It's funny, I've managed jurisdictions all over the world, and every single local from that jurisdiction, whether it be a law firm or a client, is like, Simon, what you need to understand is the key to this jurisdiction more than any is personal relationships. And I'm like, yes, I know that. And then they're like, no, that's really important here. And I was like, yes, we know.
Lovely point. Simon, final question just to you. This is something we ask all guests. What are you most looking forward to personally when we've returned to some sort of future state that we're all comfortable in?
You know what? So I'm obviously not going into the office much, or if at all. I used to actually run in the mornings, and it was a beautiful route from Waterloo Station along the River Thames over the Millennium Bridge up towards St. Paul's. And that view as you cross the Millennium Bridge and you see St. Paul's in front of you, I haven't seen in 7 months. I do really miss it. It just made me actually really appreciate London, and actually that commuting doesn't need to be commuting if you make it something that's different to that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Simon, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you today, and thanks for sharing those.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure, and okay. Thanks for organizing all these calls. They've been really helpful for me over the last few months.
Oh, great. Okay, speak soon. Thanks to everyone who's listening. We're back here again on the third Thursday of November. Look forward to seeing you then. Thank you.